Welcome to this Connecticut Main Street Center program. At the request of municipalities throughout Connecticut, we are pleased to present a four-part series that introduces the Main Street approach to downtown revitalization. My name is Kimberly Parsons Whitaker. We have an international audience this morning. We have almost 100 people registered, with 17 joining us from out of state, out of Connecticut, and one participant from Toronto, Canada. Today's webinar will introduce the promotion point of bringing Main Street back to life. A reminder that this series provides an introduction to the Main Street approach. Future webinars will take deeper dives into specific components within the 4 points. Connecticut Main Street Center is the expert resource for developing and sustaining vibrant downtowns and main streets that fuel our state's prosperity. Our mission is to assess, to educate, to convene, and to advocate to develop and grow downtowns. We help Connecticut create places where people want to live. We assist municipalities, downtown management organizations, small businesses, and property owners be more knowledgeable. We help communities understand how to bring about incremental and transformative economic development appropriate to their communities. And we highlight and guide developers toward investment opportunities. We are grateful to our sponsors and our funding partners. Connecticut Main Street Center's founding sponsors are Eversource and the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. And our growth sponsors are Avangrid and the Connecticut State Historic Preservation Office. Our education programs, Main Street Forums for the 21st Century, are sponsored by Webster Bank, Avangrid, and Farmington Bank Community Foundation. And our corporate investors are People's United Bank, Capital for Change, Windsor Federal, and M&T Bank. We also have an important strategic partnerships, including our partnership with FHI Studio, our AICP certification maintenance provider. And a note to the planners that are joining us today, this webinar is approved for 1 CM credit. So some quick housekeeping notes for you. Today's webinar will be about an hour. We will stop for questions at the end. So as Judith said, please feel free to type your questions in the chat function as we go along. And then you will receive an evaluation survey shortly after this webinar. Please take a moment to complete this survey, as it helps us develop meaningful education programs for all of you. This Main Street 4-point approach webinar series is generously sponsored by Liberty Bank. So our webinar today will introduce you to Connecticut Main Street Center's newest staff. Carl Rosa is our Field Services Director, and Kristen Lopez is our Education and Training Director. At Connecticut Main Street Center, we believe that vibrant, sustainable main streets are developed around these 6 components: a unique sense of place, economic vitality, community engagement and policies that support appropriate growth, equitable places and inclusive practices, sustainable practices and protection of natural resources, and connectivity with a focus on multimodal transit. Within these 6 components are elements that are necessary for a truly vibrant downtown that caters first to the needs of its citizens, as well as to those who may be visiting. These elements are necessary in order to attract residents, visitors, businesses, and investors. Main Street retail, restaurants, and small businesses won't thrive without people living within walking distance. And people won't stroll, shop, and dine without a sense of place, including clean and attractive, walkable places with interesting storefronts. And the healthiest communities are those where the community is engaged in determining the future, those that are inclusive and welcoming, and where the environment is a priority and development is appropriate to the setting. So the Main Street approach was developed by the National Trust for Historic Preservation in the 1970s to address the neglect and demolition of historic downtowns. And they discovered that downtowns had lost their value in these 4 distinct areas. We had lost our economic value, our physical value, our social value, and our civic value. The Main Street approach was developed to address the restoration of these values simultaneously. Both comprehensive and incremental, this is intended to be a framework guiding revitalization efforts. Every community and commercial district is different, with its own distinctive assets and sense of place. This Main Street approach provides a practical, adaptable framework for downtown transformation that is tailored to local conditions. Our previous webinars in this series have covered economic vitality and design. The economic vitality point is about diversifying the district's economic base. It includes assessing the district, encouraging strong businesses, and positioning the district to attract development. And design is about all things visual and physical. It addresses the physical characteristics, the elements, and the assets of your downtown. So now I'm going to turn this over to Carl Rosa.
Thank you, Kim, and good morning, everyone. Today we're going to speak about promotion and restoring the social value of your downtown district, defining the assets in your markets district, communicating the unique features that your downtown has to offer through storytelling, and of course, support the buy local experience that your merchants have to offer. And we're going to focus on 4 areas in promotion. One is understanding the market. For example, does your downtown provide the goods and services that people want? Are you giving shoppers a reason to come downtown? Do you understand the latest shopping trends? What's hot and what's not? Are the price points appropriate? And are you telling the world about goods and services offered? Branding. Those are activities that involve promoting, positioning, and image building for your downtown. Retail promotion. Activities planned and executed around retail promotion are designed to highlight goods and services offered by downtown merchants and businesses. And of course, special events. Special events are planned and held to generate foot traffic, which will eventually translate to increased retail sales. Events and activities which can over time reverse any negative images and perceptions about your downtown district. Let's start with understanding the market. To start with, you have to do a little bit of research to understand your downtown. You want to know what your Main Street district boundaries are. You want to know the demographics and the trends of people, what the markets are. You want to get a good handle on the household spending of people, and not only in downtown and the residents in downtown, but in your community as well. Know your business and retail inventory. This is a little like what we discussed in the economic vitality presentation, but you really need to have a good inventory of all the merchants and businesses that you have in your downtown district. They should be aware of, and you should know the competition, and also understand the attitudes and perceptions about your downtown, not only by the community or people that are thinking about your downtown, but also the attitudes and perceptions of the people in your downtown, your merchants, your businesses, the people that conduct business in the organizations, and the people that work downtown. So once you understand the market and you do all that work, that's going to lead to the branding and positioning, the retail promotion, the special events, and ultimately coming up with a consistent strategy and a plan moving forward that you can employ for your downtown district. Let's get into branding and marketing. Image building, it's an ongoing process to promote your downtown. What is your brand? What do people expect when they come into your downtown? What is your promise to them? Take a look at your buildings, your landmarks, your retail mix to understand exactly what your situation is currently. Do you have a slogan or a logo for your downtown? Do you have a website? Have you developed marketing materials? And then you want to get to work on positioning your downtown. Build your image. You may have to rewrite some of the negative perceptions about your downtown. What are people thinking? What do people that work down in your downtown think about your downtown? You may have to work on that. Develop a positioning statement. For example, if you have a particular cluster of the same types of businesses or restaurants or whatever, maybe you want to develop and position your downtown around that as a destination. A lot of it's going to have to be based on research that you do to come up with the information to get you moving in the right direction. So when you're developing materials and messaging, Probably should start with a slogan. Here's an example on the right. This is Burlington, North Carolina. You notice how they circled the 2 letters in the middle of Burlington, in, and they put the little word get there. Get into Burlington. Going to the next slide, we'll see that they really put it all together with these small little phrases. Get into the artistry, get into the excitement, get into music, get into uniqueness of downtown Burlington, get into craft beer. You know, and they just probably brainstormed a bunch of things that their downtown has to offer, and they used a catchy slogan, get into Burlington. We actually have a little video to show you that kind of hammers home their message and how they kind of compiled a lot of their materials for their marketing and branding for their downtown.
People are realizing there's a soul to a community.
I think every downtown is special in its own little way. They all have their own little perks, their own little kinks. This downtown is just, we have such a wide genre of people and ages and all different types come down here and support.
I get to go to New York City a lot and have seen a revitalization of Brooklyn and Williamsburg and Bushwick, and I get the same vibe here.
There's a lot of cool stuff here in Burlington, but it is small enough where you feel like you know everybody. It's a cool place.
Somebody said it was a vacation, and so you can just get everything done here, from eating to shopping, antiquing, and there are great photography classes, dance classes, so much is going on.
More places to live, there's more places to eat, there's more places to shop.
I love the comic book store down the street, as does my 8-year-old son. I love the skate shop. We have so many amazing artists, so many cool new technologies going on here. We have high-tech manufacturing in the area. We have great schools. We have great people.
I love that you can walk down here on a Saturday afternoon to the co-op and there's 2 or 3 people playing guitars on the streets, and you know, it's calm, it's a different vibe.
Go here for ice cream, go here for entertainment, go here for shopping.
There is something for everybody, and there is a place for you to fit in.
Exciting time to be downtown.
So you can see by that example, and trust me, there are many, many examples like that from downtowns around the US, but that was one we thought really hammered home the point, where they used their slogan, their positioning, their image branding into a video, which is a tool for them. And if you noticed, if you were looking at that video, you did see the get in part of their logo throughout the video into it, and people were mentioning it, but they covered all the messaging that they wanted to cover in that short video to get the point across. A logo. Now, if you see along the top of this image, you see San Antonio's logo. It's the S and the A, and it gives you this feeling of it's artsy, it's crafty. It almost reminds me of a musical, like a G clef or something, and you know about their music festival, but it's something that can be applied to all of their materials and all of their messaging. A little bit on the right, you see they're using it for their banners. So people know right away, they look at it, that's the message for San Antonio. Next slide. Create and maintain a website. So it's so important that you're putting together a really good dynamic website for your downtown. Make it visual, make it colorful. People don't like to read a lot of text. They don't want it to be heavy on a lot of words and things, but they want it to be effective. You should have a good events calendar on it, a business directory for your downtown, all the important information on your website, that it's interactive, it shows people where they can park, but a lot of good visual imagery that helps hammer home the point, along with your logo and your slogan, as to what you're offering in your downtown. Then, of course, you should work on developing some kind of a toolkit for your merchants and stakeholders. Get them involved with your promotion for your downtown. It's their downtown as well. They're part of the team. Put something together for them that they could use. at the very least, a business directory for them so they know who their neighbors are, and contact information. Maybe a little decal that would go in all of the merchant windows that's with your logo or your slogan that says, we're part of this team. We want people to come into our downtown. Have them working for you as well to get people to come in. And then we get into the next area of focus, which is retail promotion. Now, retail promotion, they're centered around events and activities that highlight goods and services offered in your downtown. They really are comprised of two main components. One is retail sales, which is really things that are involved with, special pricing, things like that, and retail events. Like, for instance, you can see over to the right, this is from Simsbury. That's a retail sales event. Buy a gift card, order takeout. It's also things like buy one, get one, or special pricing for that day or that week. Retail events are based on specific events that you may want to hold, like a sidewalk sale. It's usually like district at large. Next slide, please. The impact of these are to generate foot traffic. You want to increase retail sales, obviously, but you also want to highlight what the shopping options are in your downtown. A lot of this put together, tying the merchants and the retailers together, kind of creates this feeling that there is activity. We're looking at it as a district as a whole and not any individual one business. This is an example of particular retail sales activities that promote reduced or special pricing. Again, special dollar days, other types of offers. For example, you may have, come in and show your ID card that you're, a faculty member from this college, or that you're, belong to this organization. Show your ID card and we'll give you 10% off whatever you're selling. So it's type of organization and promotion within other businesses in your downtown that kind of promote to get people to come into your stores. Retail events, activities that create reasons to invite customers to shop in your downtown. I mentioned sidewalk sales, but there could be designated hours for shopping strolls, wine and cheese at the participating shops. Here's an image. They're probably on one of those holiday, pub crawls where the bus is taking them from one location to another, but it's an event for the entire district. So probably there might be 4 or 5 or 6 restaurants involved where this group's going to go from one location to another. It's a retail event. Next slide. So that gets us into special events. Now, special events, they're planned. Obviously, they generate foot traffic. They could eventually lead to retail sales and return visits. At least that's the hope. And if you keep consistent with the events, they will grow, continue to grow, and more people will discover your downtown as you have these events in your downtown. And what's the impact? Well, first of all, the events have an opportunity to attract new visitors and customers into your downtown. Also, having events, they encourage a sense of pride. Many of your events are community events that are centered around some kind of cultural heritage that celebrates your community. So it's a good opportunity that really encourages a sense of pride for your community. And it also gives merchants, and this is, I think, an important point, it gives merchants a way to participate. Either they can be a sponsor for these events, or they can have programming within their stores or shops to complement the event. In other words, come after the event, stop by my store, or all day long during the event, we'll be offering these particular sales, things of that nature. So they're definitely a way to get merchants involved. One special event is always live music, whether it's an individual musician playing guitar or saxophone with his case open, trying to play for tips, or whether it's a band on a stage or in an entertainment area. Live music always wins. It brings people to your downtown. It's a great entertainment value. Many times they're free concerts. So I would highly recommend always planning live music for your downtown. Festivals. Now, festivals are important, but they do require a significant amount of planning. They'll need funding, probably in the way of sponsorship and support, and definitely partnership. Usually festivals do celebrate the heritage of your community. Things like the Oyster Festivals or the Southington Apple Harvest Festival. Meriden has their Daffodil Festival. Things like that that celebrate that uniqueness of your community are important. So they're themed as well. Art walks. Art walks are very important. Every downtown has some element of visual art in their downtown, whether it be sculptures or monuments or things of that nature. They could be murals. But art walks are a good way to get visitors to explore your downtown. They encourage foot traffic. And by the way, they're an opportunity to fill vacant storefronts. For example, if you have a vacant storefront, you may want to consider displaying artwork in it just to create some activity while that space is getting ready to be leased once again. So art walks are extremely important. Historic walking tours. Every community has a story to tell to celebrate the heritage of your community. And whether it be through historic buildings and landmarks and markers and monuments, it's a good way to get people coming into your downtown to tell your story. I know when we were at Main Street, Waterbury, we produced a series of recorded, self-guided audio tours in participation with our city historian who wrote the scripts. And we got some local celebrities to record them. We came up with an interactive downloadable map to follow along. These recordings can be downloaded into your phones, and you could walk along and stroll along and listen to really historic walking tours of the downtown. And I think the impact of this was, first of all, it's a great family activity, but secondly, it was very important during the pandemic because people were looking for safe outdoor activities. So we were able to utilize that. But we had them for many years, and they were focused on our historic buildings, historic churches, and all aspects of our downtown. So it's a good idea to have something like that incorporated into your activities. Overlapping activities. This is always an opportunity to bring different groups together into your downtown. For example, the image on the right, we used to do our Brass City Brew Fest for 15 years. We did the Brew Fest. It's still ongoing. And there was a car show that was held right in front of the festival, and not part of it. They were unrelated, but it was held right in front of the festival on Grand Street. And although the audiences for both events were different, there was some overlap. But the important part about it is all these people were in the downtown. And even after the event, we had additional programming that kept people into downtown, going into the bars and restaurants to continue on. So the impact is the majority of the tickets that were sold for the festival were purchased online. We were able to capture all the zip codes, and we brought people in from 90 different Connecticut zip codes, visitors from surrounding New England towns, New York, New Jersey, and people from as far away as Canada that were making pilgrimages to our festival and exploring our downtown. So take a look sometimes. It might be a good idea to bring different types of events happening at the same time. You bring new audiences in. By the way, those audiences are all walking by your downtown shops and stores, and they're seeing the opportunities, and it could very well encourage return visits and repeat visits to your downtown. Now you want to focus on having covered all those other areas, a good plan moving forward. So creating the plan, you want to be consistent with your plan. And you want to have something that's more than just a look ahead of a couple of months or 6 months. You want to have a multi-year strategy for your promotion plan for downtown. It's probably going to require a budget. And you want to have those activities aligned with your brand, because you've worked on your slogan, you've worked on your positioning and your image, your logo, So you want those activities to align with that logo, and all those activities, your logo, your slogan should be front and center to show people about your downtown. And you should have specific goals with your activities. For example, if you identified early on in your research that there were issues that needed to be turned around, that there were misperceptions, those should be your goals to turn those around. Examples like, downtown workers that, bring their lunch to work rather than explore the downtown restaurants for lunch. Or, businesses that close at 5 and don't stay open any longer than that. Or I spend a lot of my time shopping online or in malls. I really don't think shopping experience in a downtown is for me. Your goals should be specific around reversing those trends and turning those perceptions around. And you should work on your delivery methods and tools for achieving that. We mentioned already about the website. Your website should be dynamic and visual and colorful and on the brand, with the logos, with the slogan. Tell people what you're all about. Your social media as well, so important. All your social media platforms should be utilized. The influencers, get the influencers, the people that are your stakeholders, your merchants, your businesses. They're part of your tools and strategy to get the word out. A really good email list, one that you've been compiling with all the contact information from your downtown businesses, organizations, all your downtown employees, people that have reached out to you for more information about your downtown. Make sure your email list is comprehensive and it's consistently updated. No one likes to get that same email twice. Put together a good press media kit. You're going to want to have that sent out when you want to publicize events and news and things that are going on for your downtown. Your press kit should always include things like, contact information, some really good visuals, the basic information about your programming, your slogan, and your logo, of course. A good distribution network. Where are you going to send all this material? You want to make sure that the places in your downtown that attract people, you want to make sure those places have a good distribution of your materials for your downtown. Places like the theater, places like the municipal workers and office workers, and your hotel, even the courthouses where the jurors need to get out on their break at lunchtime to go somewhere. So things like that, you should have a good distribution network. You may need a little bit of paid advertising, possible if your budget will allow, and good quality printed materials. The image that you're looking at on the right is an example of what we did in Waterbury for our downtown restaurant guide. For years, we had printed it up, and it was a complete listing of all the restaurants, lunch counters, fine dining, bars, and breakfast places in downtown Waterbury. It also included a map with not only points of interest, but places to park. But when the pandemic hit, we transitioned it to a digital flip book. We assigned a QR code to it. And when you scanned it and downloaded the image into your phone, the book came up. And as you flip the pages, you can press on any one of the restaurant listings and get immediately to their website or their social media page where you can view their menus. So this was a good, safe, and effective way during the pandemic to transition from a printed piece to a digital piece, because with the ebb and flow of businesses affected by the pandemic, once we printed these, they would be obsolete almost immediately. Whereas in the digital format, we can update them at little or no cost and keep them as current as possible. So then you want to look at components of your plan. Obviously, you have specific defined goals, as we mentioned, of what you want to do to turn around in perceptions. You want to have your plan be based either yearly, quarterly, monthly, but you want to have it so that you can look at the listing of activities and tasks it's going to be needed to carry out your plan. And you want to consider themes for planning as well. Next slide. Here's an example of just a very simple sheet to track when you're putting together an activity for your downtown. You want to put down the type of activity it is, whether it's going to be building an image for your downtown, whether it's a retail promotion activity or a special event. What's the goal of it? You know, how long is it going to take to execute the plan itself? Are you going to need a budget, and where are you going to get that money from to underwrite the costs of putting that activity on? What are the personnel needs? For example, do you need volunteers for it, and how many? How are you going to market it? And what are going to be the tasks involved to carry out that activity? So you want to have these tools in place to put together a good plan moving forward after you've covered all those other issues. And then finally, in wrapping up, I think it's important to understand that, you know, with understanding the market, branding your downtown, having your retail promotion or retail events, and scheduling some and planning some really good special events, you can make a difference in promoting your downtown. You know, dramatic changes to your downtown business climate and economy are not going to happen overnight. It takes hard work. You have to be persistent with it. And you have to really work on sometimes turning around those challenges and negative impressions. But if you create a positive image and you sell it to consumers, it's eventually going to yield results. And Connecticut Main Street Center can help you with that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Carl, for that overview of promotion. We are open for questions, so please take a moment to type in any questions that you might have on this, the third point that we're talking about in the 4-point approach to Main Street, and that is promotion. I wanted to just kind of highlight a few things that Carl has already said as you guys type in your questions. So one, this presentation, as like all the other presentations, are very high level overview basic. Every single one of these components that we just talked about are their own webinars, their own training courses. And of course, you know, especially in promotion, you can hire consultants for every single aspect of this. But I wanted to highlight just a couple of points. And one was on branding. We got a question a couple presentations ago, is your logo / brand important? And the first thing we want to just kind of emphasize is that your brand of your downtown is not your logo. Your logo is one small component of your brand. Your brand is made up of what people expect, your promise, your values as a community, as a downtown, what people will experience when they come to your Main Street. It also includes the types of buildings you have, landmarks, the retail businesses that you have there. And then the third component being your visual identity, which is your logo, which is your slogans, the campaigns that you use, the colors that you use. Your brand is very comprehensive. And so truly, every Main Street, every downtown, every community really needs to have its own brand. That is how people remember you. That is how you stay in their minds, to the potential visitors or to your residents, to think that, hey, wow, this Main Street, this downtown has a lot going on. I can do X, Y, and Z. That's part of the reason why we showed the Burlington, North Carolina example. They used that messaging of get in, and they used it because there was so much happening. You know, you can get into whatever you want to in Burlington, right? So I just want to highlight that point because I think sometimes we get too granular in thinking that branding is just a logo, when that's just kind of the outcome of doing a lot of research and understanding who we are and what we have to offer. And then I had one other point to make when Carl was talking about developing the plan. And one of the key things is, you know, capacity is always an issue, and there's always so many things to work on. And so, like Carl said, is pick the key areas that you're really trying to address. So whether that's a negative perception, create, you know, a whole promotion plan on fixing that, you know. But the other really key part is to maintain consistency. One of the images that we showed was the 25th anniversary of Old Cities in Philadelphia's First Friday event. And I mean, 25 years, right? And now that picture was a couple years old. I think it's over 30 years now they've had their first Friday event. You know, that's the type of consistency we're talking about. If you do have small capacity in your organization, you don't have to do everything, but if you can do a few things right consistently, that is really going to make huge impacts in the branding of your town.
Well said, Kristen. I wanted to add on the events side of these areas of focus. You know, sometimes events, when you start them off, it's important to understand that they will grow over time organically. The first time you do an event, you may think, well, we had a few people show up. You know, it was a good event, but you know, it really didn't meet our expectations. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a successful event. You know, if you take a look at it, see what worked and what doesn't work, come back with it again, maybe next year. This event will grow over time. It'll grow organically, and before you know it, it becomes a tradition, and a tradition for people to come into your downtown. Keep going back to our Brew Fest because it's a good example. Every year that we did the Brew Fest, after the event was over, we would do kind of a wrap-up meeting with our volunteers and kind of see what worked and what didn't work as a way to improve the event for next year. And a lot of the suggestions and input added to making the event better and better and better each year. So the first year we had the event, 600 people showed up, and we thought to ourselves, wow, this turned out pretty well. We didn't know what to expect, and it was the talk of the winter. And then we did it the following year, and we got 1,100 people to show up. In year 3, it was 1,800, and then beyond that, it just took off. We were off to the races, and it became this thing. And so I think that the important thing to realize here when you're planning events, they will grow over time. If it's a quality event and a successful event to start, it will continue to reap benefits for you and your downtown.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And here, Mark, he also echoed the idea that brand is when people say about you when you're not in the room. Absolutely. That's personal or organizational, and your downtown or Main Street. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Please type in your questions that you might have. We have time. Or if you want to share some of the examples of how you've implemented promotional activities, or perhaps where you are in your kind of promotional aspect of taking care of your downtown. Are you still in a research phase? Or are you rethinking what your brand is? Yeah, so please tell us your experience so far.
You know, Kristen, I can't overemphasize enough also the impact of getting your downtown businesses and merchants to work with you on whatever campaign you come up with for branding your downtown. Everybody's part of the team, and if you can encourage that attitude, you're going to be successful. Which means you have to bring them in, you have to show them what the tools are, you have to get them to buy into the approach. It's hard sometimes to turn around those negative perceptions, even from the merchants. You know, after a while, no one likes to hear a merchant and a business person complaining about the downtown they're in. Although I to this day can't understand why they would do that, but they do that. So, you know, your goal is to turn around their perceptions as well and make sure that they're on board and they're part of your team.
That's a really excellent point, Carl. And especially, you know, if you are investing, you know, in an agency to brand your downtown, the last thing that we'd want to see is that shiny brand plan and the pretty graphics just kind of keep to yourself, right? It's maybe a few social media posts, maybe you hang up a few banners and that's it. No, it's really needs to be an asset for everyone to use. You know, creating materials that everyone in the community can use, which that will also reinforce the or tackle, I should say, the negative perceptions, right? Because if everyone's saying the same thing and you're still the one that's you know, negative Nancy, right, on that one point, you know, maybe you got to get with the program.
I'd like to jump in here for a second, Kristen and Carl. You know, just with this image that we have up here, the 4 components of promotion, I'm mindful of the fact that of overlapping activities. If you are a Main Street program, or if you are a loose affiliation working together in partnership, no matter what your model is, that first point of understanding the market, that overlapping activity, which we talked in great detail about in the economic vitality webinar, you've already or are already, through your economic vitality work, capturing the information that you need in order to start developing your brand and building a strong promotion program. So to underscore the importance of not working in silos in your efforts to bring downtown back to life, you're working with those individuals that have already begun to capture market data, to capture psychographics and demographics. And so it's an excellent opportunity as you get off the ground to be working together on that.
You know, Kim, to add to that point, you know, when we're talking about promotion and the quality of life, particularly in your downtown, when you're promoting, you have an image that you're building for your downtown. You have these events, people are coming into your downtown. Prospective businesses that are looking to move into your community and into your downtown look at the activity and the vibrancy, and that could be a game changer in their decision as to whether or not to locate in your community and in your downtown. So that's one good example of how these 4 points, they work together. They have to work together in concert. So I know that, you know, you hear so many stories about companies that were considering moving into a community, and when they looked at those aspects of, you know, the vibrancy in downtown, the cultural attractions, the images, the branding, the way it's being cleaned and kept well, it bodes well for them moving into that community. You hear a lot of stories about that. So it's one example. So that's why it's important to focus on your image and your branding for your downtown, because it sends a signal well beyond your community and your borders of a welcoming signal. You want people to visit your community.
About from Chris about any social media recommendations, you know, which ones to use, how often, and I want to jump in here and give some thoughts here. So the first step one is to really understand your downtown and knowing the demographics, because knowing who your visitors are or who you want to attract really will influence what social media you want to be on. For example, if one of your goals is you really want to make sure the youth in your community have a place to go, or, you know, your main street has activities that are, you know, really suitable for youth, you know, maybe you'd want to consider, you know, TikTok, right, which has a younger demographic usage, right? The other thing is with social media, it's really about using all of the features that it has and really implementing best practices. So for example, Instagram is a great tool. It's very visual. So you do want to have, you know, nice looking pictures of your downtown or different businesses, but it's extremely key to be sure that you're using the geotag, which means that your location is always attached to that image, and that you're using the right hashtags. And that helps people to discover, you know, that picture and learn about whatever it is you're trying to promote. There's also a lot of other features with Instagram, you know, stories, reels, that can help you be found more easily. Facebook is it's changed a lot, and it's harder to grow organically, though it is possible. But what I've seen really effective is in creating Facebook groups. So if you had a downtown Facebook group where people join in. So they're always kind of up to date on what's happening in your downtown. If there's an announcement, if, something, a new business is coming town, people can get that information right in that group. And that also builds community as well. And then in terms of, really how often, social media is such a capacity issue. So that's why I'm really trying to emphasize, focus on doing it right by using all of the best features, by optimizing your social media with hashtags and the geo tags, because you don't have, the more you post, better, but that's a lot to ask. So if you can keep a consistent schedule, 2, 3, times a week, but the consistency and doing it the right way is really key.
Another benefit to social media as well, Kristen, is you can really get the word out in real time, which is so important. And particularly with, Instagram and it's just a really good tool to get the word out. But you're absolutely right. Know your target audience, because you can't just pick any one social media platform. You really have to know the type of event or what type of message you're trying to get out, know the target audience, and then pick the social media platform that's appropriate that'll be most effective to reaching that audience. And I think, but the good news is we have these platforms to be utilized.
Absolutely. There was another comment in here from David about need more detail and nuances of parking. David, if you want to elaborate on that, I'm not exactly sure what the question is there. Yes, all the presentations are available to view again. Let us know any other questions that you might have.
We did cover parking, I believe, in the design webinar from last week. And I would imagine that parking would be a webinar in and of itself someday, because it is a very involved topic. You wouldn't think so, but it is. But obviously, whenever you're planning any types of events or activities or retail activities around your downtown, you are going to have to integrate the parking component into that planning and get the message out. So it's a very important aspect to your planning operations, to let people know if you want people to come into your downtown for these events, you have to tell them where they can park. So yes, it is that important.
Yes. We have one comment here from Stacy. Our EDC is at the very, very beginning of generating interest in holding a 150th anniversary celebration of our town. 3 years from now, anyone out there start up one of these events. Love to hear from anyone who has suggestions. And Stacy included her email address. That's great. Carl, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just doing like 150 year anniversary. Yes, many communities have gone through similar celebrations and exercises on this, on how to celebrate such a great milestone. But first, you want to put together a really good committee of interested people from the community, from the stakeholders in your downtown, to kind of plan the major components that you want to be part of that celebration. And what's going to work, what's not going to work, what time of year it's going to be, and how do you? I'm assuming you want to plan an event around it. What that's going to look like, what type of event. If it's warm weather, do you want to celebrate with a parade, and do you want to end up with some kind of a festival afterwards? You may want to consider some kind of programming or event that can grow from that celebration and be an annual thing moving forward. There's a lot of different aspects you can do, but I would start with a good committee of like-minded people and a good team of interested people that want to see it move forward.
Yeah, Carl, that's a great point. And just one other thing that came to mind, you were talking about consistency. 150-year mark, right, is pretty significant, and so it doesn't have to just be a one-off event. You really could spread it out throughout the year, right? And really use that.
And that brings me to mind another aspect. A lot of organizations will take their logo and their look and their brand and add a component for that marker. For instance, Burlington, downtown Burlington, get into Burlington and help us celebrate. We're celebrating our 150th anniversary or whatever. So you've altered for that 1 year your slogan or a tagline you've added to that image and that look, just to get people to understand that it's a milestone, but you're still maintaining, the dynamics of your brand and your positioning for your downtown.
We got a couple of more questions here, Carl. Where do you find the research you talked about at the beginning of the webinar? Esri?
You could find a lot of there's a lot of organizations that could help you with the sales demographics. You can certainly, there's retail association organizations that you can hook up with that'll give you statistics like that. There's census information and census data that you can go to. There's certainly Connecticut state information, advanced CT. You can get to the, which is the old Connecticut Economic Research. There's CEDIS. There's a number of state organizations. I'm sure after this we can post the links and give you that information is where you can go to get some of this demographic statistics, and they can help you go find other sources as well.
Yeah, I'll also say we've worked with UConn Extension Program, Laura Brown at UConn Extension and the Community and Economic Development Division. And they've been helpful in getting Esri data.
From Mark, if you had to rank 2 or 3 of the most important ways to create promotional contrast between districts in the downtown, what would these initial focus areas be? Any examples would be great.
2 or more?
If you had to rank 2 or 3 of the most important ways to create contrasts.
I'm not sure as far as contrasts are concerned, other than I hope I'm going to answer this correctly, is to look at what you have for your assets or what you want to promote. And you might want to look at the types of audiences that you want to bring into your downtown as well. And you may want to look at it could be a generational thing as well.
We've had good experiences working in certain downtowns in the past where the focus group aspect of this is really important, because if you're trying to focus on what are the first 2 or 3 just out of the gate, then what you need backing up from that is the input of the community in what they feel the most important assets are, the most important experiences. That informs the creation of your brand. And so one of the best ways to do that is a series of focus groups. And you can do those in cohorts. You can decide to put together a group of people under the age of 20, or you can do it at cross cohorts, mixing people. But I think that is a good first step in order to tease out what is your image, what is your brand, what are the assets in your downtown. And then you can begin to build promotional activities like what Carl talked about around that information. It's unique to you, definitely.
And those activities could also be a reflection of your community. Family orientated types of events, ethnic types of events that celebrate the different cultures and heritages in your community. We've always promoted that downtown is everybody's neighborhood. So the events could be reflective of that. But what I was getting at also with the generational aspect of it is they could be youth related. They can be something completely different. So there could be contrast, but Kim, to your point, the only way to get that is to know, to gauge the temperature of the community and get that sense where they're coming from. And that's the focus group.
I'm looking at the time right now. So we have a lot of follow-up to do. As we've said all along, we're going to be sharing the presentation with you. We're going to be sharing links to information. We'll continue to gather that information. It'll be posted on our website. So thank you, Carl and Kristen, very much. I want to close out here with a little bit of information for you. Our next webinar is on the organization point of the Main Street approach, sort of pulling it all together, including information about who are your partners, where do you go for partners and volunteers in order to implement your Main Street action plan. So that will be featured heavily in our next webinar on organization. So let me just say, the Connecticut Main Street Network extends throughout our state. Our network includes professionally managed downtowns and neighborhood districts, as well as municipal planning and economic development departments, and 2 regional organizations representing the interests of the many towns in their region. We also have a professional affiliate membership for industry professionals. And this network provides our communities with access to specialized expertise relevant to downtown revitalization, historic preservation, economic and community development, real estate development, land use, transportation, marketing, and more. As you've seen, joined by Kristen Lopez, we have our Field Services Director, Carl Rosa, today, and he is eager to assist you in your downtown revitalization efforts. And so we welcome both Kristen and Carl to our staff. We encourage you to visit our website, ctmainstreet.org, where you'll find all of our webinars, links to our YouTube channel, our directory of professional affiliate members, and our small business video library. And as I said, the 4th and final webinar in this series will introduce organization, which involves creating a solid foundation for sustainable revitalization efforts. This will include cultivating partnerships, community engagement, and resources for the district. Once again, we thank all of our sponsors and our program partners, including our sponsor of this series, Liberty Bank. So thank you so very much for joining us.